Welcome to B Flow Sessions, the podcast where we help you find the flow in life and on the river. I'm Brad Burden. Join me as I talk to paddlers, athletes, and adventurers who are all seeking the flow. B Flow Sessions is supported by the brands that keep us moving downstream. Dagger Kayaks, wherever there's water. Sawyer Paddles, crafted in Oregon and whitewater proven. And Stolquist PFDs, conquering wild waters since 1977. Support the companies that support the flow. Welcome to the next episode of B Flow Sessions. And today I am so privileged and honored to be joined by somebody that I consider a mentor and a friend in the sport, Shane Benedict. Shane, thanks for being on with us.
My pleasure, Brad. Good to be here and chatting with you.
Yeah. So Shane got a start, at summer camps in Western North Carolina, but then went on to an instructor at NOC, uh, taught and coached for Adventure Quest, and then founded his own kayak company, Liquid Logic Kayaks. And people in the paddling world just know you as kind of one of those, just one of the best kayakers of all time and competitors, but and kayak designers. But really, I would just call you an ambassador to the sport and somebody who just everybody admires and looks up to. So thanks for being here, and tell us what really got you into the flow of kayaking.
I think the main thing that got me into the flow of kayaking was uh, really just a love of water.
Mm,
Was kind of the beginning. I just have always liked being in streams and rivers and lakes and oceans. And early on in my early teen years, I ran into someone that was a paddler, and so they ran the paddling program at this summer camp that I went to, and she was all about how the water was flowing and why it was doing the things it was doing. Basically, she was teaching me how to read the river early
sure.
on, and having me explore why I thought the river was doing certain things and what it was doing. And we were swimming in rapids a little bit and feeling all that stuff, and that brought it all together. That just the love of water, but then also to figure out how to work with it and move with it. That had a major impact on my early paddling, getting me into it.
So what year did you start at the Nana Hill Outdoor Center?
Um, the, the dates are a little vague in my memory now, but it was around 1990. Might have been 89. I get those dates a little bit mixed up, but yeah, it's right
and
around
and
then.
and that was kind of you know a glory days, if you will, for kayak construction at the center. I feel like Tom DeQueer, and I'm not sure if like people like Spilius and Castorf had gone on yet, or if they were still there. You kind of overlapped with them. So I mean, gosh, I mean some of
Yeah,
the,
I
the
overlapped with them a good bit actually. Castorf was my checkout as an instructor,
nice.
and I don't know if you ever heard like you would do your final checkout as an instructor, but Ken had a special little ritual that he did, which was to actually try to make you swim.
Okay,
And we had a full standoff where both of our boats were full of water, and he was not able to make me swim. So it was a good day.
nice. And it's funny, in the paddling world, there's and other sports are like this too, right? Where somebody coaches somebody who goes on to coach somebody else. I mean, you probably, Bill Hester was there, and he was my checkout. So you find those through lines in the paddling world for sure. But then, how did you get into competing in freestyle? Some people they set out to really compete in it. Some people are like, I just like to play, and I think I'll show up at this rodeo.
I mean, that is really what happened. I just really always like playing around, and as the when I went to the summer camp, I most everybody was paddling canoes, which was kind of what everybody did back then.
Sure.
And they just happened to have a couple kayaks around, and I took that as sort of a challenge. I was definitely a rebellious kid. I was very lucky to find kayaking, or I would have gotten in a lot of trouble probably. And so I was wandering around with all these canoes, and I was just exploring with the kayak. I would be going back and forth across the river trying to find every hole, every wave, every eddy, trying to do all this stuff while the canoes were working their way downstream. And so I just wanted more excitement, so I kept doing more. I was, I'm probably on the spectrum of ADHD or whatever it is, and so I was always looking for a hole or a wave or whatever it was, and I'd see somebody doing something like we'd get down to Nantahala Falls, and there'd be somebody there doing enders, and show them, what are you doing? I want to do that, or I'd see somebody roll, and I'd say, oh, I got to figure out how to roll, um, and all that stuff. So I always was drawn to playing, and yeah, and then one day I heard about an ender contest at the French Broad, and um, drove myself up there with a borrowed dancer and actually won. So that was pretty cool. That was the beginning of my rodeo stuff.
Yeah, and then that 93 Worlds, kind of one of the like momentous events and all of kayaking. I feel like like to me that one stands out as just like one of the like big key moments in freestyle kayaking.
Yeah, I mean, pretty spectacular. It was, and of course it helped that it was at the Ocoee, which is
Right.
sort of our, one of our home rivers in a way.
Hmm.
Um, a big focal point of kayak instruction as well as play because the squirt boaters had really gone for it down there as far as getting play really going and trying all these different things. And yeah, we were doing different sort of play and elevated and working around in holes and doing cartwheels and all that stuff was just evolving right then. um, the year couple years before that, we were just starting to link up that second in and starting to happen. And then as the worlds, well, funny story is I actually rolled in to team trials by accident. I didn't even know it was happening
Ah,
for the 93 Worlds.
okay.
Doug Geiger and I actually were paddling the Ocoee, just playing our way downstream, and we rolled in, happened to be just at the right time for team trials, and they said, "Hey, you want to jump in here?" And so we were like, "Sure."
Hmm.
And
Ha.
I jumped in. I think I made the last spot on the team or something like that. Um, but then for the next year, I pretty much was there every day, or every day that I could. I was
Right.
down at Hellhole playing with all the other trolls under the bridge.
Yep.
Um, it was a good time.
But pretty successful Worlds though for you. You medaled, right?
Yeah, yeah, as a medalist, it was really fun. It was a
That's
great time, and it was so cool to like. That was my first experience paddling or any kind of competition where I was working with an international crew. So you have all these
mm,
people coming in from all over the place. I made fast friends with people from everywhere, and I would meet them again in the future. Different places, paddling in different parts of the world, working with them in different parts of the world, doing different river trips, and going to different competitions as well, and competing with all of them for many years.
yeah. So flow guides, who were your first mentors in kayaking?
Well, I mentioned my very first mentor was
Hmm.
Nancy Suda, and she was the one that kind of showed me how to kind of look at the river and see what it's doing and read the river, and just to kind of move. She really liked to move smoothly with it, and so that was always integrated into how I wanted to paddle was to try to make it look easy, and make it feel smooth and easy was definitely
Yeah.
the goal. Um, Later on, as far as instruction went, is Eric Neese,
Mm.
who he helped me. I had kind of a crazy thing happen where a paddle broke on a really high water day on the Chattooga, and he happened to help me out a little bit as far as because my paddle broke, and so he helped me figure out how to stuff the end so I could paddle at C1 out the rest of the day. And then I later met him he became a real mentor as far as kayak instruction, just because he thought of it from a crazy, he's such a brain power person. He just
Mm.
really thought about kayak instruction in a really different way, and he brought in physics and all kinds of crazy ideas. So it just made me go, whoa, I can think about this about teaching in really different ways, and so that was a really incredible part of it. I did a lot of time, paddling with Bob McDonough, who was one of the
Mm.
early masters out there,
Yeah.
both squirt and surface paddling. And he also personified that super smooth, in control
Yeah.
technique. So it just kept getting more and more integrated and ingrained in my style of just wanting to be super smooth and precise and precision, is what it was all about.
And then talk to me about then going to design for perception. and some of the first boats you got to work on there.
Yeah, I was a tinkerer, kind of always a little tinkerer, and I would uh, play a little bit with volumes in the boats and play with my outfitting a little bit. I'd stick foam on the boat, try to add volume and stuff like that. And Bob kind of was like, dude, come on and apprentice. He was designing at the time,
Hmm.
designing the Super Sport. And then he said, come on in and help me and start learning how to shape stuff. And I was helping with the Whippet and Whiplash. Um, and then things transitioned, and I ended up doing my first boat, which was the 3D
Okay,
at Perception Kayaks.
awesome. And we'll get into your love and your baby, a Liquid Logic, here in a little bit when we talk about current flow. But before that, tell me about this is called perfect flow. Tell me about a time when just everything seems perfect on the river. Like, your perfect day, you think back, it's just like, man, this was epic. I know there's been a lot of those days, but
There have been a lot of those days. The In more recent years, no, the perfect day is and has been many times a day on the green in the summer.
yeah.
You're you're skinned out to win. You not you can paddle in a t-shirt actually to keep you cool. You got all your friends. I've got a pretty tight friend group that I paddle with pretty regularly. Andrew Holcomb, who you would know, and Polk Dieters, and
Hmm.
a few other folks that um, are the tight crew that I really like to be out there, and we're goofing around and having a great time. And those are like so lucky to have had so many of those on the green. It's something I cherish for sure.
Um, Speaking of the green, and this segment doesn't, I know for some people it may bring up some emotions. We're 1 year away from Helene, and I call this segment flood, but it doesn't necessarily, have to do with that, but it may resonate with you. Or just tell me about a time when, you know, things went wrong on the river, or when things were going bad, and how you navigated that.
Well, as having many good things, when you paddle long enough, um, you have some bad things happen too. And I've lost a lot of good friends. I am
Mm,
um, lucky to my luck is that I haven't been there for
mm,
any of them. My unluck, is missing some quality people. Um,
yep,
paddling is paddling is not the safest thing you can do in the world, and
right.
many of us that have been paddling a long time have lost a lot of friends. And when you talk about those perfect days, I would love to paddle with Chuck. I'd love to paddle with Pablo. I'd love to paddle with Maria again. There's so many of those people
Yep,
um, that we would love to paddle with again. Have another perfect day.
yeah, for sure. What about low flow? Times when you've been away from kayaking, either by choice, injury, job, family. People like you and EJ and Clay, you guys really amaze me in that, I mean, you're not, in terms of years, you're not that much older than me, but you were one of my mentors when I started kayaking. So I always considered you like this elder statesman, even in the late 90s, and you're still going strong. You may not paddle 300 days a year like you did when you were in your 20s or 30s. But,
Yeah.
talk about the low flow times, and also if you could talk about how you've just kept the Stoke alive so long.
Um, well, I mean the keeping the stoke alive is it's rivers and water and that feeling of perfect of flowing down the river. I actually have this very specific moment where I was running Sunshine, and this was a few years ago. This is a while ago, and I have run it a million times. That's not true. Not quite true. and
Feels like
I
it.
felt like I could see the trail of water and bubbles that I was going to follow going across the drop, and I could see where exactly I was going to hit the rock, bounce off, and do the next little boof and all that. And those feelings of constantly flowing and working with the water so, and trying to do it so precisely and feeling when you do, that it's, I want to keep feeling that. And um, that's what keeps driving me, keeps wanting me to go back. And then the other one is those perfect groups, having those
Hmm.
perfect groups of friends that you go and have a, just have a perfect afternoon, chill, having fun, goofing around, doing these moves that you like to do, surfing waves and hooting and hollering for each other. That's the other part of it that brings it all back. Um, the but this year though has been really challenging. Helene um, did a job on a whole bunch of rivers around here, and
Yeah.
in fact, for several weeks, and I got really lucky. My house is fine. My road is fine. All that is okay. But for 3 weeks, which is nothing compared to most people, for 3 weeks, all I did was cut trees and move mud and do all that kind of stuff. But there are people still doing that a year
Right.
later. There's still
Yeah.
people still trying to do that to get the same access they had before. So during that time, so much was beat up and destroyed and flooded and all that. It felt I had a really I did not want to go kayaking. I did not want to go
Mm.
into these neighborhoods and communities that were
Right.
still dealing with stuff. 30 houses left the bottom of the Green River, or 27 or something like that. And
Right.
so it felt wrong to go drive. To me, it felt
Disrespectful,
wrong
right?
to go drive. What's that?
It feel like disrespectful to them, and to
It did,
their
yeah. And
hardships.
also, just as an infrastructure thing, the more people
Right.
that are driving on this beat up, flooded road, the more it dilapidates, the more it falls apart, and so it feels intrusive for sure, and also jeopardizing their their ginger infrastructure.
Right.
So that was a thing. It felt disrespectful just to be
Hmm.
having fun while so many people are dealing. Um, and so I didn't have any desire. I had no desire to
Mm.
go kayaking. And it was pretty. It's also because my home river. I literally have built everything in my life around the Green River, and the Green
Right.
River is completely changed. There you can tell where things are if you know that river really well. You can tell
Hmm.
where you know Gorilla, for example, is pretty easy, but then the other slides are very different, but they're in their same location, and you can go like, well, okay, I recognize that rock, but everything else is totally different. And so that also made it like, I don't know if I want to go back and see that, but I do. We all as paddlers want to see a new river, and we get to have a new river right where the old one was.
Right.
Um, so that time will come, but it hasn't yet. It's been over a
So,
year.
so have you not been down New Green yet?
I haven't paddled it. I've walked in a
Okay.
bunch. I've walked not a bunch. I've walked in a couple times to kind of go
Uh-huh.
up and down the river and check it out and see what was going on. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be interested to
And
hear what you
so,
think once you paddle it.
yeah. Well, everybody seems to think it's great and good
Okay.
fun and just different. Now we've got
Right.
young rocks instead of old smooth rocks. That'll be interesting
Yeah.
to see. There's a
But
lot
it's
to uncover.
interesting, like the Nolichucky, from what I hear, people say it's better, and the Pigeon, although I wouldn't say it's very aesthetically beautiful right now with the whole construction zone going on in the river, right? You just have to look left the whole time you're going down the river, but it's pretty fun too.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. And
Yeah.
so um, I did some early promo paddling for the Torque in the spring, and then I didn't paddle again until Golly Fest Golly season started up, and I went the first weekend up there, and then paddled during Golly Fest, and so have 9 days in the past year, and usually I'm
Oh,
between 75 and 100 days a year.
oh wow. So
And
you really
but
took,
the Golly was so awesome. That's such a great river. It got me fired up
yes.
again, and I'll be excited to go get into the green. I'm kind of waiting for a little more water. I could have
Yeah,
gone last weekend, and I was thinking about it. So that I'm getting fired up again, and that's exciting. It's a good thing to feel.
that's good. Um, Flow advice. I want to do this two parts. You got somebody who's new to the sport. What advice would you give them? And then I feel like since I've gotten back into paddling since June, I keep encountering all these other people from 20 years ago, and they're all like, I'm getting back into paddling too. I don't know if it's just kids getting older, whatever the case may be, it seems like there's a lot of 40 somethings who quit kayaking in their early 30s because of jobs and geography and family who are now rediscovering it again. So, a new paddler getting started and an old paddler returning, what advice would you give to those two groups of people?
I think I would. I think I'd start with the same advice for both,
Okay.
and it. I was lucky to have been brought up this way, and you hear it all the time, and it's slowly do harder moves in easy water, and
Hmm.
that I didn't paddle the Ocoee for 3 years, I paddled very hard, and I paddled, but I was on the Little Tennessee, the Tuckasegee, the Nantahala was a big day, for
Right.
those first few years,
Yeah.
and I just went, like I said earlier, I just went to every single pour over, every single little surf wave, every single tiny eddy I could try to catch. If we were at the Nantahala, I would walk back up and do Nantahala Falls over and over and over, try to catch micro eddy, try to get macro, try to do
Hmm.
it backwards, try to do everything I could, to just keep trying stuff.
Yeah.
Try to run it differently, run it on different sides, all that kind of stuff, so that you're constantly honing your skills. You're not necessarily doing drills or anything like that, but just exploring and in fact exploring your skills and what you can do and how you would do it and all that kind of stuff. That would be the
Yeah.
main thing. And then as an older paddler, keep your elbows in. Keep your
Protect
elbows
those
in.
shoulders.
Yeah, protect those shoulders and stretch.
Yeah.
Loosen up before you go. That's big.
It's been a real journey for me getting back into it. I'm having to go to physical therapy for my shoulders, and I'm really focusing on my diet and my exercise and stretching. But it's been interesting because kind of learning things all over again. It's kind of neat.
No doubt, no doubt. And the the main thing for me, all those trying to cartwheel 10-foot boats and 9-foot boats even, and all those bigger boats that we were freestyling with back in the day, and then boofing everything until we started to
Hmm.
learn that we needed to 45 some stuff or scoop some stuff instead of always landing flat. My back, it's all about protecting my back. So
Yeah.
the other one I would say is try to keep that core going. It's my morning ritual is a little bit of stretching and a fair bit of core,
Okay.
sit ups and arches and planks, and just to get myself going. Try to
Good.
keep all that stuff together in the middle there.
That's right. That's right. All right, so this is called the current. So what do you do today to find the flow, and also, talk to us about Liquid Logic and how that came about, and all the different designs, and maybe, things that you're working on for the future.
um, we kind of touched on it, but it really is the finding the flow now is finding some fun folks to paddle with and finding fun moves that I want to do,
Hmm.
which usually involves surfing a wave or finding a smooth line, through a rapid.
Yeah.
That always just feels great, especially with a good group of folks. Um, that's a big part of it. Um, and I'm also lucky that I get to think about boats and designing, and so I get to think about different ways that I want to paddle a rapid or different ways that I want to surf a wave. And so I get to actually then create a boat that does it the way I want it to, and that's pretty inspiring. I'm very, very lucky to have that opportunity to make. I, People have heard me say this a million times. I make the boats that I want to paddle, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming everybody else wants to do that too. Has creative ideas on how they want to paddle the river and be a part of that. Um, Liquid Logic was luck. We were a group of folks. There's 7 of us really, that wanted to start a new company that um, just really wanted to go hardcore into paddling and into quality boats and do our own thing. And that's how Liquid Logic started. A whole group of us. I was just a designer of whitewater boats to start with. Um, and through the years, we pick up rec. We're doing all, well, we started with rec, but we picked up, we Merged with another company, Native Watercraft. I started designing fishing kayaks and all different types of stuff. Now we've merged with another brand, Bonafide Kayaks. So we have a couple of fishing kayak brands. Thank you, Fishing Kayak. We appreciate that. Um, and so now I'm designing all kinds of stuff. So everything from a whitewater kayak through a recreational sit on top to a to a high end, crazy, expensive fishing kayak with all kinds of doodads and electronics and um, sonar and motors and batteries and all kinds. So I'm learning so much the last few years, and as far as that goes, in a totally different part of paddling. Um, but it's super fun and inspiring, to find a new group that really loves these little boats and wants to push the limits in whatever their category is. And I still get to dabble in my whitewater fun, and it's I'm super lucky. I'm just blessed that way.
Well, they're great boats, and when you've been around it a long time, and you can see the personality almost of whether it's Corin, EJ, you like you can almost see the personality of the paddler through the designs, and I think that's really cool. They reflect the personality and kind of the paddling style of the designer, and you know not a whole lot of people would know that if they don't know the people behind the scenes, but I can definitely
Yeah.
see it. I see your passion and just your style reflected in Liquid Logic, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's because when we started Liquid Logic, we moved it right up to the Green River. The Green
Hmm.
River has impacted everything we've done. We held on to round hull shapes for so long because they work great on the Green River.
Yeah,
But I'm a playboater at heart, so I
sure.
was also always fighting to bring in either a playboat or a boat that had great surfing qualities, or cartwheeled really well, or because that was my background, was a lot mostly playboating, but also some expedition paddling and all that kind of stuff. Um, so that that style has its influences, and also
Yeah.
I'm a 200-pound guy, so that influences a lot of things. I think I'm a medium. I'm not an extra large. you know. So boats fit me, and so if you're in that 6 foot tall, 180 to 220, you're probably going to be all right in one of my normal size boats. And then you have Robert Pearson, he's a lot smaller than me. So him and Corin both designing boats a little tighter, a little smaller.
Yeah,
Um, so you definitely get an influence from the designers for sure.
for sure. Yeah, it's really cool. All right, are you ready to run the rapids?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, so this is kind of like a quick fire, but like your Mount Rushmore segment. So think about your top 2 to 4 for each of these categories. If you ever want to, you ever want to hit the skip button, I will allow it. All right, kayak designs of all time. I know you're biased here, but let's hear it.
um, I always will have a soft spot in my heart for the remix. I did the remix, and we sold it for almost 15 years, just because it's a very intuitive design. It was a reach back. Whoa, my lights went out. Hang on. There we go. It was a reach back towards speed. All the boats were getting shorter at the time. They were
Hmm.
dropping down to 8.6 and under. And one of my, you've heard now through the whole interview, that discussion, that I like smooth and
Hmm.
finesse and ease, and the remix personified the gliding through turns and all that kind of stuff. And so it felt great to me to paddle. I took it on the hardest stuff that I paddled at the time, and yet it was part of the origin of its design was actually working with NOC instructors to develop an instruction boat that would work well for beginning kayakers. And
Oh,
so
cool.
that boat is really one of my favorite designs that I ever did. Um, and so that was big. Um, right now, I have two boats that I love that I just did recently, and one of them is the Hot Whip, which is a boat I can paddle just about anywhere. I wouldn't take it on the very hardest whitewater I would paddle, but it's such the perfect green boat because I can run all the rapids, bow stays up, stays dry, but I can play my brains out. Super fun. And now having fun with the the power slide, which is a 10 foot, very slalom influenced boat that plays on the tail really well, super fast,
Mm.
catch on the fly wave kind of stuff. So anyway, that's kind of sounds sales pitchy, but
No, that's
those are so
okay.
fun. And it's hard to get me out of the hot whip though, because it's just, it's such a pleasure. It surfs really nicely. Um,
That's a
Spins
cool
easy.
looking boat.
It's super comfortable, all that stuff, and I
Yeah,
just play on my tail all day long and goof off. Um, it's great.
it looks
Old
really
school.
cool.
Well, and then so the two old school. I got to go two old schools.
Okay.
Um, the Whip It Whiplash. So the
Yep.
Whiplash, I play boated it. I ran the hardest stuff I ever ran in it. Um, that was a very influential boat. It directly influenced the remix, and that was more
Hmm.
of a Bob McDonough. That was a Bob McDonough design that I just helped shape on, and that influence definitely pushed me into my designs a little bit. And then you got to go back to the AQ. Noah AQ
Okay.
was my first boat that felt super playful and fun.
Yeah.
It surfed really well. It had a nice flat hull, so you could spin and change direction. And so that was one of the things I started running harder and harder stuff in. That's kind of my
Awesome.
collection.
All right, your top rivers of all time.
Whew. Top rivers. There's well, so for sure the green. Um,
Yep.
that's it. Um, and then before that, my original home river was the Chattooga, which is the camp that I started at was in the headwaters of the Chattooga.
Okay.
And so as a young kid, I was tubing in the Chattooga in the headwaters.
Mm.
We would camp along overflow. We actually would camp right at Three Forks and hike in there and swim and everything. And the first time I ran overflow, I was like, wait a minute. I know where I am. I used to camp here as a camper. I didn't even know where I was. And then later on, working my way down with Section 2 and Section 3, and then guiding with NOC for 10 years on the Chattooga. I worked down there guiding on Section 3 and 4. I
Hmm.
used to take kids groups, and we would do multi-day trips through Section 2 and 3. So that was a really special place. There is nowhere more magical than the Futaleufú River in Chile. That is an
Yep.
incredible, incredible place to be.
Yep.
Um, oh man,
I got
that
one
there's
more.
some good
You got
stuff.
one
I
more.
had a Probably my biggest expedition I ever did was the Humla Karnali in Nepal, and that
Okay.
place was unbelievable and intense at the time. Um, and that was just Charlie Mounsey, um, Muncie, and Bob Beasley and I, the three
Mm.
of us, and it's just my first time being that deep into
Yeah.
a place like that and being completely removed from everything else going on in the world,
Right.
and paddling really intense whitewater. That was a magic time. Let's
Well,
see what else.
that takes me to countries. What your Mount
Oh
Rushmore countries?
yeah, man. Well, we were just there. We were Chile, and
Yep.
Chile is unbelievable. It's like California. It's got the Andes on one side and the ocean on the
Hmm.
other, and you got to lose all that gradient somewhere. So
Yep.
every single watershed is prime whitewater. And
Yep.
my first trip there, we literally went down it like a rung of ladders and just paddled every watershed as we went down, working our way south. Um,
Yep.
that was with Hester and Bees.
Oh, cool.
That was an unbelievable trip. But Chile and the people are fantastic. You
Yep.
can be in a modern city in Santiago, or you can be super remote and there's cowboys herding cattle on horses and and oxen pulling carts. So you get this crazy diversity of experience. But the rivers are phenomenal. And then there's New Zealand. South Island
Hmm.
has those same characteristics.
Yeah.
Mountains, ocean, rivers. If it rains, look out. It's going to happen fast. So many good rivers to paddle. Um, uh, Nepal was more of a cultural thing, but an
Hmm.
incredible destination. Um, what else? There's so many. Ecuador is really
Ecuador. Yeah.
really fantastic. Just because there's so many rivers, and you also get this crazy cool cultural experience. It was it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat.
Um, a river that you've not done that is like, this is a bucket list. I want to get on it, but I've never been.
I think I'm past. I think I'm past that.
No, there's not one.
I don't
There's
know.
not
There may
one.
be. Well, um, things never. One thing I regret is not having gone. Um, um, I'm drawing a total blank on it right now. Jesus, people just got back from there, going up to
Oh,
BC,
the
British
Sakine.
Columbia. That's the
Sakine.
key. I don't know why
Yeah.
I drew a blank on that. I regret not ever getting it all together to make that happen. I missed out on a couple opportunities. Um, that's one I
Do you
wish I
think
got, but
you?
I'm past that now.
I was gonna say,
I'm not going back
do you
there.
honestly, you feel like you've aged out of that?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't have the same threshold for fear that I
Yeah.
used to have.
Yeah. I just saw
I don't,
Andrew
I don't
Holcomb, and he was in that group, and I was like, and it was just his first bag of it. I was just like, I'm so happy you got on it because, yeah, it's not like the Grand Canyon or something that you could do when you're 60, right? I mean, it's
yeah,
there's definitely an age and stage of life and paddling skill that goes into being able to bag that one.
yeah. Um, yeah, I don't really have a list of those kind of things. I'm not sure why that is. I'm uh, very happy doing the stuff I'm doing, and I'm open to opportunities. So
Yeah.
if I see something, I'll be excited to try it out.
All right, so this last one from the Rapids is controversial, but you have a lot of people pass on this one, but you on your form at least you said that you would give it a try. The Mount Rushmore of paddlers of all time.
Mount Rushmore of paddlers. I'm trying to remember what I wrote on the form.
I can give it to
I
you if
mean,
you need it. I got
obviously Dane is unbelievable in that his diversity of talent. From
yeah,
freestyle to waterfall hucking to expedition paddling. He's doing it all, and he's doing it at a level that people have never seen. There's
yeah,
never been that sort of separation um,
yeah.
in all aspects like that. So it's hard to fathom. It's incredible. Having watched him basically, he was a baby at the 93 Worlds, and having
Yeah.
watched him grow and watch him playing in the creeks as a tiny kid, he has been more focused on whitewater than anybody ever in the sport, and that's easy for me to say and 100% correct that nobody has been focused on whitewater throughout their entire life as much as Dane has, and it shows. He's
And
unbelievable.
still just incredibly humble and like will go up and talk to anyone. And I saw videos this weekend of him like fishing a raft out of Big Kahuna on the Cascades, and, just
Yeah,
pulling people
yeah,
out of the
he's awesome.
Rimadoon. Yeah, he's
He
pretty
is. He
phenomenal.
is awesome
Yeah.
for
Some
sure.
other people you had on your list, you had Willie Kern, Rob Lesser, Marlo Long, and Pat Camlin.
Yeah. So I mean, uh, well, early on in my paddling career, I got to see this video of Rob Lesser, and
Mm.
he was surfing these big waves. And at one point, he was back surfing, and he was back surfing on a big wave in a dancer. And I had a skateboard background, and so I always had this belief that anything I could do forward, I think I could do backwards, and I could switch. Like a skateboarder would try to do fakie, you try to do stuff the other direction as well. And the fact to see him back surfing this huge wave, I was like, okay, this is a focus in my life. I want to back surf everything I can front surf. And so I would work really hard. If I front surf something, I would try to figure out how to back surf it and, ferry out backwards or spin or whatever it was. And one day I was out doing a thing with Perception Kayaks, and the waves came in downtown Boise, and Rob Lesser and I were both out on the wave, back surfing, and it was big enough that we were actually able to do crossovers and everything. And it was like, oh my god, all of my goals are achieved. I've gone back surfing with Rob Lesser. Oh man, and then Willie Kern just has all the Kern boys, I would say,
Yeah.
paddling with the Kern brothers, they just have a knack for finding a route. And Willie had this unbelievable knack for finding a route. I'm looking, we're looking downstream, and I'm like, I don't see anything. He's like, I think I got it. And no scouting, he just felt a line.
Wow.
And he has an ability to do that. You know, he finds a line. He's comfortable. You know, he's comfortable, so he made me feel comfortable, and I always just paddling harder whitewater with Willie. And he's so smooth. You know, as he
Yeah,
moves downstream, I always appreciated that.
for sure.
Marlowe Long. So this is kind of a out of left field kind of thing. I would argue to this day that Marlowe Long he doesn't paddle a whole lot anymore, or
Mm.
I don't even know if he paddles anymore at all. But at the time when he was doing freestyle wave tricks, him and Pat Camblin were creating all new things. But Marlowe had the most style of anybody
Yeah,
paddling,
he did.
specifically on a wave. He had
Yeah.
an incredibly unique look at how he moved from one move to the next, how he moved about the wave. Nobody did it like him or has done it since with the kind of style and flair that
Yeah.
Marlowe had. And I was just always watching him. I was just like, wow, he's doing this totally different than anybody else.
He was, yeah, smooth and dynamic both at the same time,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. All right.
Oh, do you have
So
anything else on there?
that was that no that was your list. So now this one, I love this question because it always gets people to think, and I don't mean this is not a morbid thought. Okay, so this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
final flow, right? So there's all these things in life that we do for the last time, and we don't know a lot of times that this is the last time I've done this thing. As a parent, there's the last time I changed a diaper, or last time I dropped my kid off at the carpool line, whatever,
Right.
and you don't know it's the last time. So, but the river gods have come down and they said, Shane, we're telling you this is the last time. This is the last time you're ever going to be in a kayak. And you get to pick your kayak, you get to pick the river, and you get to pick your crew.
Well, I'd probably go to the old answer I've said many times. Is um, being on the Green River
Yeah,
with um, Holcomb and Polk. Probably little A, Adrian.
yep.
Yonton would be really cool to be out there with. Um, yeah, I'd have to pull Bees out of retirement. I don't think he probably can't even get in a kayak anymore.
Is he still in Nepal?
It'd be a collection of friends. What's that?
Is he still in Nepal?
No, I think he's in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
It's been a minute since I talked to him. It'd be a collection of tight friends. We'd be on the old green,
Yep.
if I can revert. And sure, I'm paddling a hot whip.
Awesome. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Shane, it's been just
But
an absolute joy.
now I gotta look forward, take my crew, and
Yeah,
let's go figure out this new green.
that's right. That's right. But it's just been an absolute joy to talk to you. It was great seeing you this past weekend or weekend before up at Golly Fest, and great to catch up with you again. And thanks so much for being really authentic and not just on this episode, but always. And so really appreciate you, and thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it. I enjoyed chatting with you.
All right. Well, we'll hopefully see you on the river sometime soon.
Yep, sounds good, Brad.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of B Flow Sessions. Please take a moment and rate the show, give it a follow, and leave a comment. Also, if you could share it with your fans, your friends, your family, and everybody else you know in the paddling world, that would help the show grow and help more paddlers find and be in the flow.